It was supposed to help me, but instead, it nearly ruined my knees. That's how I'd sum up my mistake. Like many people my age, I wanted to stay active, flexible, and independent. So when the local senior center offered gentle, joint-friendly exercise classes, I signed up without hesitation. The instructor seemed experienced. The pace was slow, and there were chairs for support. It all looked perfectly safe. There was one particular move we did almost every session: light squats combined with alternating knee lifts. We were told this would strengthen our legs and improve balance. It sounded reasonable. It felt a bit tiring, but that's the point of exercise, right? So I kept doing it, every morning like clockwork. At first, I was proud of myself. I thought, look at me, still strong at 70. But after a few weeks, something started to feel off. A dull ache in my left knee. Then a sharper pinch on the right side when I stood up. Eventually, even walking upstairs became uncomfortable. I told myself it was just stiffness or age catching up. But one morning, I couldn't finish the warm-up. My knee gave out halfway through a squat. I went to see a physical therapist, and that's when I heard words I didn't expect. That move you're doing, it's actually putting the wrong kind of stress on your knees. He explained that for aging joints, the combination of bending and lifting, especially when done repeatedly or without the right muscle support, can lead to strain, not strength. In other words, that so-called gentle movement was misaligned with how senior knees naturally wear down. I wasn't hurting because I was inactive. I was hurting because I was doing the wrong exercise in the wrong way at the wrong time. The good news? There's a better way. One that supports the knees instead of grinding them down. And I wish someone had told me this before I followed the crowd. After that visit, I stopped everything. I took a break from the class, iced my knees, and rested more than I wanted to. But the pain didn't just vanish overnight. It lingered, like a quiet warning. I kept thinking about what the therapist had said. It's not the exercise itself, it's the way it interacts with your current joint health. I realized that for someone in their 20s or 30s, that movement might be beneficial. But for me, someone who's had years of wear on the cartilage, some past inflammation, and a little bone-on-bone rubbing, that move was too much. And yet, no one had explained that nuance before. Every brochure, every community bulletin board simply said, exercise is good for seniors. They never added the fine print, but only the right kind of exercise. So I started reading. A lot. I watched videos from orthopedic specialists, listened to physical therapists who work with older adults, and began understanding my own body in a way I never had before. That sharp pain I'd feel when bending too deep, that wasn't a normal sign of aging. It was a sign my body was trying to warn me. Eventually, I found a different approach. Instead of those deep bends, I focused on isometric exercises where the joint isn't constantly moving under pressure. Simple seated leg raises, wall-supported mini squats that don't go too low, even aqua exercises where water supports my weight, these became my new routine. And guess what? The pain started to fade. Not overnight and not completely, but noticeably. I could walk to the mailbox without grimacing. I could get out of bed in the morning without feeling like my knees were rusted hinges. It wasn't just about the knees. It was about learning to work with my body, not against it. The problem wasn't laziness. It was misinformation. No one tells you this part when you get older. You're told to stay active, to eat healthy, to keep moving. But they rarely explain how different your body becomes, how something that helped you in your 40s could hurt you in your 70s. Muscles weaken, tendons tighten, cartilage thins out, and suddenly, a move that looks easy can act like a slow grind on the joint. I now talk about this a lot in my senior group. When someone asks why I don't do the knee lifts anymore, I smile and say, because I still want to walk next year. We laugh, but they listen, because too many of us are told to push through pain, to ignore discomfort, that it's just part of aging. But I've learned, pain is not a sign of progress. It's a signal to pause and reassess. I started to reflect on the culture we grew up with, especially in the post-war generation. We were taught to endure, to get on with it, to keep moving no matter what. And while that grit helped us through many tough decades, it also made us dismiss signals from our bodies that we should have taken seriously. In my case, the pain didn't scream. It whispered. It started as a slight twinge while gardening, a stiffness after standing too long. I blamed the weather. I blamed getting old. But I never thought to blame the very routine I had so proudly followed, until my knee buckled under me. I look back now and realize our bodies do speak. We just have to learn the new language of aging. When I first learned that certain senior-safe exercises could actually accelerate joint damage if done incorrectly, I felt frustrated. Not because the exercises were bad, but because no one had taught us the modifications that matter. A slight change in angle, a shift in weight, even using a resistance band instead of body weight, it all makes a difference. And this isn't just about knees. I've met people who were told to walk every day for heart health, but no one checked their shoes or their gait. Others were told to stretch more, but without understanding that overstretching aged tendons can increase the risk of tears. It's a minefield, and yet it's avoidable if someone would just walk us through it properly. One of the most helpful things I did was book a few sessions with a senior-specific movement coach. I hadn't even heard of that term before. A coach who works only with older adults and understands the unique biomechanics of aging. She didn't ask me to lift weights or push limits. Instead, she asked me to simply stand, barefoot, and close my eyes. Within 10 seconds, I started to sway. Not dramatically, but just enough that she could tell I had some issues with balance. She explained how knee function is deeply connected, not just to the quadriceps and hamstrings, but also to the foot arch, hip alignment, and core engagement. All things that tend to weaken subtly over time. She showed me how to engage certain muscles before I even started moving. Tiny adjustments. Tilting the pelvis slightly. Shifting the weight more onto the heels. Keeping the knees behind the toes. It felt odd at first, like I had forgotten how to walk properly, but within a few weeks, my body started remembering, or maybe learning. We didn't train hard, we trained smart. No jumping, no deep bends, just stability drills, gentle strength building, and movements that respected the limits of older knees while still challenging the muscles around them. One day, during a check-in session, my coach asked me something unexpected. "When was the last time you felt proud of your knees?" I laughed at first. What a strange question. But then I paused. I remembered hiking in my 40s, climbing up uneven trails without a second thought. I remembered dancing with my wife in the kitchen, both of us barefoot, spinning gently on a tiled floor. I remembered carrying my grandson up the stairs when he was too sleepy to walk. I hadn't thought of my knees with fondness in years. They had become a source of frustration, of limitation, but maybe that was part of the problem. I had stopped treating them as part of me and started seeing them as something broken. That moment changed something. From then on, I didn't just exercise to fix my knees. I moved to reconnect with them. I massaged them, iced them gently after workouts, spoke kindly to them in my head. It might sound silly, but that shift from frustration to compassion made it easier to stay consistent. Consistency. That's the word most people forget, especially when we feel pain or fear or discouragement. It's easy to give up when progress is slow, but I realized something. The knee doesn't need perfection. It needs patience. Some days I still felt stiff. Some mornings I didn't want to move at all, but I did. Even if it was just stretching while sitting on the edge of my bed or rolling a tennis ball under my foot to wake up the nerves. Little things, gentle things, daily kindness to the joints that carried me for over 7 decades. And here's something else I learned along the way. Not all pain is from damage. Sometimes it's from tight muscles, not the joint itself. Sometimes it's poor posture from years of sitting the wrong way. Sometimes it's weakness in the hips making the knees work overtime. We seniors are often told, "Your knees are just old." But age is a number. Dysfunction is a pattern. And patterns can be changed with the right knowledge. The more I learned, the more I realized how much of my pain had been preventable. I wasn't cursed with bad knees. I had simply followed generic advice without asking the right questions. If I could go back, I'd do a few things differently. First, I'd pay attention to how my knees felt during and after each exercise. Second, I'd stop thinking no pain, no gain applies to aging joints. Third, I'd ask more questions. And lastly, I'd treat my knees with more gratitude. I think what saddens me most is how many of us suffer in silence. thinking it's our fault or that it's just normal. But there's a big difference between natural aging and avoidable suffering. Nobody ever taught us how to age. They taught us how to save money, raise kids, work hard. But they didn't teach us how to move when the body changes, how to adjust, how to listen, how to advocate for ourselves. Now, when I meet other seniors struggling with knee pain, I don't give advice. I share my story. There was one morning a few months into my new routine when I stepped outside and noticed something strange. I wasn't thinking about my knees. I wasn't bracing for pain. I wasn't walking cautiously. I was just walking. That, to me, was the greatest victory. What I've learned is this. Healing isn't about going back to who I was. It's about moving forward with who I am now. There is strength in adapting, strength in choosing a slower pace, strength in admitting when something no longer serves your body, and the courage to let it go. And that trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. You don't just wake up one day and feel brave again. It's slow. It's subtle. Some days you think you've made progress until an old ache returns and doubt creeps in. But over time, I've learned that progress isn't linear. It loops, stumbles, and restarts. The key is not perfection, it's persistence. There were mornings I did nothing more than stretch my legs out in bed and gently circle my ankles. That was it. But I marked it as a win because I showed up for my body. I listened. I didn't punish it. I didn't force it. I just acknowledged it. Eventually, those circles turned into standing stretches. Then slow, supported steps across the room. I relearned balance. Not just physically, but emotionally. I wasn't trying to be who I was at 40. I was trying to be whole again, where I was with what I had. And the biggest shift came not from movement, but from mindset. I stopped seeing exercise as a duty. I started seeing it as communication. A way to ask my body gently, "Are you okay today? What do you need?" Sometimes the answer was movement. Sometimes it was stillness. And I respected both. What surprised me most was how that approach spilled into other areas of my life. I became more patient with other people, more forgiving of small mistakes, more curious than critical. When you learn to treat your own body with compassion, it becomes easier to extend that grace outward. I also started journaling, not long essays, just a sentence or two each night. Felt steady walking today. Knees complained after stairs. Try fewer tomorrow. It wasn't just a log. It became a map. I could trace what helped, what hurt, what healed. Now, when someone in my group says, "I don't trust my knees anymore," I nod. I know that fear. I've lived it. And I tell them, your knees may never be perfect again, but they can still carry you if you meet them with care, not criticism. Because we don't need perfect knees to live a good life. We just need a new relationship with them, built on attention, understanding, and time.